You are live on YouTube.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to call to order our septic inspection committee. We've had already a long morning, I will say, for health services. So I think that we'll try to keep it relatively short because we still have personnel and finance to cover today. We do have minutes of our prior meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Thomas. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, that carries. Thank you. Supervisor Legg, it's a little hard for me to see you, but I'll try to make sure. Okay. So we did have a lot of really great public comments during the two public hearings on Wednesday, the 17th up in Lake George, and then again here at the board meeting on the 19th. And I thought we could try to maybe synthesize those, but I'm not sure that everyone has had time to really digest all of that. I asked the committee members to think about it and bring some ideas forward today. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we did have sent out to us the report that was done by the Chazen engineering group on behalf of the Lake George Park Commission that talks about impacts of on-site wastewater treatment systems on water quality. And then I put together a little, just some internet research about different studies and other information about water quality impacts on waterways. Because one of the things that we heard was, do we really have information that septic systems are impacting water quality? And the conclusion that I came to is that, yes, there's plenty of information out there. There's decades worth of information about how failing septic systems can negatively impact water quality. So I guess one of the big overall questions was, well, maybe we just don't do anything. We don't need to do anything. I personally think we still need to keep chugging forward on this because there is a lot of scientific information out there saying the septic systems are a problem when they're failing and leaking into your water. Yes, Supervisor McGowan.
Well said. And, you know, being through the meetings and listening to, you know, the people's concerns and, you know, and really getting this right. And then the option with the towns, villages to opt out, which, you know, just doesn't make as much sense to me because we're trying to do this and then they have the option to opt out. But my side colleague's not here today, but I was talking to Supervisor Wild about it, and he was there at the Lake George meeting, and he kind of came up with a good idea. And I thought I'd maybe throw it out. You wanted some ideas, and I can't really take this away from Mike because I liked it. Was maybe putting a moratorium that all septics need to be located and serviced within a, say, 4 or 5 year period. You know, put that out there so people become aware of what they have, where their septic is, you know, and it gives it a time factor where we're not pressing it on people, but we're moving toward that goal as we work on this. But it was just an idea out there. You know, you could shorten it for maybe the lake, you know, 250 feet of the lake, that they need to have something, you know, submitted in with X amount of times, because it seems like every time we do this and everybody's working on their own system, but this way, if we all have it, they know, and then they can get a certification that their system is working or not working. And then we can address it that way instead of just a transfer. It was just an idea that we'd have to put some thought into it, but I mean, it didn't sound like a bad idea. And in this way, as Mike wanted it throughout the whole county, everybody's system, you know, because that would protect, you know, the homeowners and protect the future homeowners, you know, on their systems. Just throwing it out there.
I definitely, we heard a lot of comments about how people thought it didn't go far enough. They wanted fairness. They wanted it to apply to all water bodies or all properties, which I thought was interesting. I mean, certainly water quality impacts can happen anywhere. And especially if you also have a well on your site, on your property. So that was something Another one was a lot of people did not like the transfer provision because it could slow down the sale too much. So if we say something like within, everyone needs to do it within 5 years, that gives them time and it's not necessarily linked to their conveyance. And then the other one was the opt-out. A lot of people did not seem to like the opt-out or wanted it to be something where the municipalities had to renew that annually. So what do people think about the changing it from the at transfer to 5 years? Supervisor Leggett.
Want me to start the?
I don't know. Should I, Frank?
So.
Supervisor Thomas?
I like that idea better than the transfer law. I think the transfer law is just going to create issues. But I think what goes along with the 4 or 5 year moratorium or whatever you want to call it,
No, not a moratorium. Let's not call it that.
No.
mandate,
Inspection.
Mandate.
Band-aid.
requirement.
It's actually,
No.
to me, to me, it's more of a schooling too. It's going to get people to start wondering, well, geez, maybe I better start looking. Let me find out what kind of system I have. Really, it's all part, I think, of the education, and it slowly brings it in. Because like I said, I know them, but the average homeowner probably doesn't know, anything and how it works.
Yeah, that's what I
And what the importance of is, annual pumping and an inspection can do to help prolong your system.
The education, I think, is would be the key to that. And helping people, not trying to penalize them, no matter what the situation is. That's my opinion. And maybe requiring inspection ports.
Yeah.
If they don't have one, they would have to. Thought that was a good idea.
I did too. Yes, Supervisor Beatty.
And you could break it up the 5 years and 20% each year. It'd be a revolving type of number. So 20% would be inspected year 1 or whatever, 20% year 2, 20% year 3, 20% 4, and 20% 5. That way, all of them confine or are then within the 5-year parameter. That's just an idea, because from a logistics standpoint, there's no way in heck you could do them all in 1 year or do you wait all 5 years? I mean, there's a lot of options here. I'm just throwing that out there. So I'm not married to any one of them. I'm just throwing that out there.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, on that, I see what you're saying, but this is going to be asked by the homeowners to do it. At least to get their system pumped and looked at by, and we'd probably have to talk to some of the pumping companies so they'd be aware of what they have to, because you're going to need a certificate. So we'll probably have to certify, the pumpers to say that, you're going to have to inspect this, while you're pumping and to make sure, you don't see anything out of the, above and beyond. But I think it's a goal and it's a concern, and then we can help go further with the homeowner, maybe something like that. Sorry, I don't want to take up the time on it, but
No, that's okay. I know one of the things that I was reading last night too was about phasing it in over time. So I think this is maybe a better idea. Phase it in over the 5 years time frame. Give people more flexibility about when they do it. So it's not right against their sale or conveyance or someone, unfortunate death situation and they have to convey the property. That gets rid of all of those concerns.
and it covers the people that put them into a trust and that way they'll never get inspected.
Right.
Well, not that they do it purposely. I would think that they.
Well, this law would not have ever applied to them.
Right.
Okay. One of the things I was hoping we could pass, do you want to say something, Craig? Go ahead. Supervisor Leggett.
A couple things here. So, and I don't know where to start on it there. I sent you a list, Chairwoman, of some of the things. And I guess define the problem and then fit the solutions to the defined problem. And as right now, as we put out there, the problem is nutrient loading of our lakes by septic systems that aren't working properly. So in order to solve that, how do we go about making sure that we are not having nutrient loading caused by failing septic systems? And as Chairwoman had mentioned during the public hearings, is that upon transfer was one of the compromises we came up with. Ideally, you'd go around right now and check every single one of them, make sure we're all good to go, which is a huge job. Supervisor Beatty's idea of doing things over time is something that could moderate it. Managing that would be a Herculean as well. So putting it onto a scale right now, what is the threat of this problem? And the greater the threat, the more we put into it right now. And the lesser the threat, the more time we have to work on it. Every lake is going to be a little different, every stream and such. I do think from the public hearings, one thing that came out was about fairness. Why just some lakes and not every water body? If we're concerned about water, water is water. So, this committee's job is to really assess, do we go further at this point from the input that we got at our public meetings? And so on inspecting septic systems, when it comes right down to the brass tacks of it, is a big job. And that's something that we really have not nailed down to see what is an effective way to inspect septic systems. We can say they need to be inspected, but if it's a septic pumper, they come in, they pump out the tank. The tank is a holding tank. It's safe. There's no leaching out of that whatsoever. And they can pull out whatever's in there and say, there you go. You got yourself a clean tank. It looks good. We've inspected it. It's fine. But the tank is usually not the problem. It's the leach field after the tank. Where does that go? Is that doing what it needs to do? Is it properly sized? Is it with all the right materials so that you have the right amount of evaporation versus soaking in and things like that? And that's something that we really haven't addressed in this law. And I don't know how well we can do that. Hearing from engineers, they say, to get in there to inspect the leach field, you're going to be getting in there and you're going to be digging the thing up and disturbing it. It's a big cost. It's a big problem trying to find the leach field, first of all. And will that really be effective? So I think one of the things this committee needs to consider is the technical aspects of the inspection itself so that we do achieve what we are setting out to do, which is solving the problem of nutrient loading into our waterways. Just putting that out.
For sure. To go back high level for a second, I think that in my mind, those water bodies that we listed in the appendix that are, were going to be originally subject to this law, I think those are our priority lakes. But what we heard a lot was, let's make sure we're fair and let's not leave anybody behind. So in my mind, some of it is, what are the areas where we need to prioritize and address first, and then that we may address more over time, or this law can come up with a phased approach for how we address not just these priority lakes, but our other lakes and water bodies in the county as well.
That, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. As I was driving through our countryside the other day, around a lot of the ponds, I saw Crystal Lake, Valentine Pond. These are all over in Horicon, but we also have some in town of Chester as well. Most of those developments have happened through the 80s, from the 80s on. So these are relatively newer systems that have conformed to relatively newer sanitary code. So they are not the biggest threat. When we look at lakes that are listed here on our priority list, we have development that goes starting, let's say, from the 20s on, and a lot of substandard lots and systems that were not designed, so to speak, to handle the use they have now. So, that we need to weigh that as well when explaining why this would cover some and not others. It's where is the preponderance of possible problems.
That's a great point. That is, yeah. And we've heard too about how many people don't even know where their systems are because they're so old. They're from, the 40s, the 30s, 20s. So that's definitely a consideration. Just not to delve in too much, but I do want to address the idea, and maybe Supervisor Stroud can speak to this because it's from experience in Queensbury where they have required the septic pump out and also the uncovering of the distribution box to the leach field. But it does not require the leach field itself or the lines in the leach field to be disturbed or uncovered or, something that would be problematic. But the law doesn't actually require that. So I'm not sure where that came from, the idea that you have to tear up the leach field. Supervisor Stroud and then Morlino.
Well,
I see both of you if you want to fight it out about who goes.
I don't, Jane, do you want to go?
I just want to put my 2 cents in. All I heard today is a lot better than I've heard for the whole year. I like this idea, and I think we can add to it with our regulations that if the septic system is pumped out, have the company put a dye in there. Now that dye might take a couple of weeks to get to the water, but you might be able to spot some of the problems that you have in these older systems. Now, I know in Lake Luzerne, and it's not a joke, some of these houses are still pumping into 55-gallon drums because, you're talking back from the 40s and 50s. So I like this idea. It spreads it out over 5 years. It shows that this board is interested in getting this solved. And I think most of the people that have reasons not to like it should definitely like this system. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Supervisor Stroud.
Well, yeah, inspecting the system, the D-box is an integral part of the system. And that is one of the areas where it would be most telltale as to how effective the system is working. And most of our repairs have been in re-leveling the outflow from the D-box to the infiltration field. Very simple fix to that. They have these inserts that are plastic and cheap and easy to install that you don't have to disturb the D-box itself. Just put these inserts in and re-level the situation so that the effluent that's being cast out to the field is going to all branches at the same time and not necessarily loading one of the branches and causing that to fail, which will repeat itself depending on the number of branches in the infiltration field you have. But I agree that, our goal is to try and prevent our current on-site septic systems from adding to the pollution levels in the adjacent water bodies. And so if that's our goal, then we should be looking at it in a multifaceted way. Yes, it'd be great if everybody had their septic system inspected every so often. You could even argue 10 years is valid, has to be inspected. There is an expense to the inspection, such as locating, and some people don't know where the D-box is, locating the D-box. But it also should be a county requirement that, the septic system, at least, or the septic tank, I should say, should have a riser on it. That should be mandatory standard practice. All septic systems, on-site septic systems, should have risers. That would enable an easy pump out without locating the septic box, which is a problem if you talk to any of these septic
companies. Perhaps we could look at that. That would be a good fix and moving forward in the right direction. But also, I've heard reference to standards. I think you're talking about Appendix 75A, which, you know, sets some minimum standards. However, we've noticed all through New York State and other states requiring, in certain situations, you do a risk assessment. You take a look at the soil type, the terrain, the proximity to the body of water, and other factors. And if the risk comes to a certain level, then an advanced or enhanced primary treatment will be absolutely required. That is not required by 75A currently, but you can make the argument, it's a valid argument, if your intent is to try and mitigate the pollution that's going to the adjacent water body, that you should have an advanced or enhanced pretreatment sets. In some cases, you may even ask for an enhanced or advanced secondary treatment system. All right, so I advocated this with the Lake George Park Commission, and there was agreement that as they look at their regulations, they also look at design standards with the idea that we may have to impose those design standards above and beyond what's in Appendix 75A. All right, with that, you know, we need to look at a more comprehensive scope of a solution for the problem. I think that's what the Lake George Park Commission is doing. So the regulations and standards they eventually arrive at are something that all of us could take a look at. I think they're doing a very good job. So I don't think we should be so quick to jump on any quick solution because I think it has to be comprehensive and it has to be manageable. Manageable in the sense that the current proposal puts the burden of compliance on the county. In contrast to that, in other words, if the system isn't compliant, we got to take them to court. That's going to be the county's expense. That's not going to be a small expense. It's not going to be a small effort. I mean, Queensbury, for example, forces somebody who can't do, if their system has been inspected and has been proven faulty, not working like it should, that they will put up $2,000 and assure us that that will be done within 6 months. For example, you can't really put a septic system in with a ground post. You can, it's not easily done. But waiting for the spring is more reasonable. But they put up a $2,000 retainer, which they will get back if they complete their system in accord with making it functional in accord with the law. So that puts the burden on the property transfer situation, not on the town of Queensbury, or as this proposed here, on the county. So, you know, there's a lot of things that I think the intent of what the county's trying to do here is very good. But the times have changed. The picture's become more comprehensive. I think we need to step back a little bit and allow the Lake George Park Commission to see what they're going to come up with. I think they'll be a guiding example for all of us. So, you know, I would wait for that. But, you know, and you have the opt-out provision. Why don't we have the opt-in provision? I mean, it seems that there is some municipalities who have some concerns about going in this particular direction. I would like to give them more room. I think everyone has the right intent. Everyone knows the job that has to be done down the road. And I think the municipalities that don't have some kind of inspection system or some kind of urging for septic systems to be inspected or improved I think they'll come aboard eventually because that discussion's out there. I think this will, septic transfer law has promoted that, and that's a good thing. But I think right now, I think we got to step back and kind of see a few developments occur and then jump in into the foray. I think we all want to go in the right direction. We do not want our on-site septic systems polluting the adjacent water body. That's our goal, is to mitigate that. And we know what's going on. Claudia's entirely right. There's study after study after study that shows it's there, it's going on, and it's ruining our lakes, and we need to do something. I get that. I think we all get that. But how we get there, I think, takes a little bit more of a comprehensive consideration. I don't know if that answers.
Thank you, Supervisor Stroud. Very good comments. And I think all of us want the program to be successful and manageable, like you said. And we're not trying to rush things. We are taking our time and we're going to look at it again and again and again. And one of the things that I'm hoping we come out of today is with a resolution from the special committee asking the board to extend our existence into 2022. Would you be willing to make a motion to that effect, Supervisor McGowan? Thank you. Supervisor Thomas, thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Now,
Go ahead.
thank you. I just, Supervisor Stroud, thank you. I mean, you really explained the system and really how it works. And you really, the importance is the D-box and the distribution. So that is, a lot of people don't know that. And like I said, there are some fixes that can be done. And also for these smaller constraining lots, these pre-treatments. We just had one that we approved in the planning board. Basically, by the end, you practically could drink the water because it's in a flood zone that on Glen Lake that the water's never come up that high. But in case it did, this system and and he is a protector of the lake, and he's going with this super enhanced, which was really amazing. We've come so far. The education is the main thing, and getting people aware. I kind of like the idea of enforcing that everybody at least has to have their tank pumped out by X amount of time, say 5 years. That way, at least the people know where their septics are, and it's not putting the body, we can start, and that would be all bodies of water and all, because it really just protects the people. But, it's just a thought, but, there's so many different factors that go into this, but really, how do we push the education? It's something that we can, planning can work on. How do we get that out there to get people aware? Besides the great articles that you see in the Chronicle and the Post-Star, people are starting to get aware. People are starting to ask me, how's the septic law going? What did but people are actually starting to think about it. Wow, I never knew that. So
That is a big piece. And I think that having this committee around and continuing to talk about it does add to this overall dialogue and understanding and education of the public. But we could do more. I can ask Andrea to see if there's anything the planning department can help us with.
just a
We-
thought.
We
Put it
did
out
send out those postcards to everyone that was within the 250 feet of the water body. So I think that was that was a good step. And that reminds me, we do have the survey results. I'm not sure that they ever got sent out. So I will I know I talked to Mike Colvin this morning when he was here, and I asked him to update it one more time, see if there have been any new results, and we'll send that out. Make sure we get that out. And then the Lake George Park Commission report, that's been sent out, and the research that is in that Word document's been sent out to everybody. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Is there any public comment today? If you could go to the podium, just let us know your name and your town. That would be great. Oh, there is Mike. Thank you. I know it got sent to me this morning, and then I think Jeremy said he would look at it one more time and send it again. Okay, thanks. Go
Hello,
ahead.
I'm Linda Clark from Glen Lake. I'd like to do a clarification of my suggestion from the last meeting. I had asked that the board consider grants so that the financial burden wouldn't push out homeowners. And Lisa Doster suggested an alternative of giving tax relief for those who are in this situation. I became aware that my suggestion came under criticism because I was suggesting that people with $1 million homes with adequate income would be eligible for a grant at taxpayer expense. This is not the intent of my suggestion. Any financial relief that would be linked to this issue would be income-based. Again, if this is something that Warren County is considering, I ask that the Glen Lake residents be included. I do not think that it is the intent of this board or our community to create elite communities on waterfront properties by pushing out people who are not financially able to take on this burden. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm glad you came to clarify. Thank you. Anything further? All right, I will take a motion to adjourn at this point. The plan is to look at it again and meet again before we bring it back to the full board. Supervisor Leggett?
Yes, no, thank you. Education, perhaps that's one of our first steps. We can always discuss outside of meeting here on coming up with a plan for education. That's going to be critical once it goes into law, but even without any law, education is still effective.
For sure. I know one of the things the Park Commission has been talking a lot about is maintenance in between the years where inspections are required. And I think they're talking about a regular education program in those in-between years to help people understand it's not just that periodic inspection. They're supposed to be maintaining their systems regularly. So that's good. That's a good point. All right. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Supervisor McGowan, Supervisor Thomas,